Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Disc Dog Pod. I am your host, Jeff Hill, my co-host.
Kirby McIlveen.
And today we have a kind of an interesting, important set of ideas to talk about. And it's basically related to cross training for the human side and injuries and things along
Yeah,
that line.
everything the handlers do as a partner
Mm-hmm.
to their dog outside of the dog training piece of it, all the extra things we do to go above and beyond as a handler to better ourselves for our dogs.
And what I wanted to do is just give a short little story of something I'm doing now. I've been doing disc dog for 27 years now, and I am still working on my form. So I am going out there right now and concentrating and working on my toss and fetch throws. And what had happened to me is I've had some injuries. We'll be talking about those a little bit. And basically, my form started to slide, change a little bit, and I realized that it was happening, and I've been able to compensate and kind of luck out a little bit that it hasn't, hurt me too much in terms of my competition, competing. But now I'm at the point where I could just tell that I'm not going to be able to fake it anymore. I need to actually be able to throw good. And I don't feel that I am at that level that I used to be, and I'm trying to get back to that. So the story is, even after all these years, I am still training and practicing for myself, just me, worried about how my body's moving, my mechanics, and all that kind of stuff. And that's basically the intro. Just say that if I could still do this 27 years later and I'm still worried about my mechanics, everyone else should be doing it forever.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm in a similar boat, but I think I'm earlier in the timeline. I think I'm still able to fake it. I'm still able to kind of get by. I'm I have plenty of injuries from doing this, mostly from overuse and throwing over and over and over. And really, what does me in is the toss and fetch, because physically, it's not very easy for me to get to the 40-yard zone. It's not easy for me to throw distances. I'm not naturally very strong. I've always been naturally very weak, and so I feel like a smaller framed person trying to throw that distance exactly into a little 5-yard box is kind of just asking for injury. And here I am at 30 years old, pretty much, reaping the rewards, quote unquote, of my uh, hard work over the years, which it's been wonderful because I've been able to throw really well. But I feel like the last few years I've been a little bit off, and my body is compensating regardless of what I tell it to do, and it's doing things that I don't want it to do just because things hurt and because injuries and because those muscles don't want to do what they did before because they hurt. And that really irritates me because I'm so used to just going out and throwing and being mindless and just go, go, go. Almost in a way, work harder, not smarter, and some might say. For me, I kind of want to throw and practice until it's mindless and I don't have to think about it. So that's part of where all of my injuries come from. But I'm in the same boat on injured. I don't know that I'm trying to change my form at all. I think I'm trying to keep it the same without falling apart, and also keep the same form and keep it the same without compensating and ruining what I have. I'm trying to preserve what's left of what I have so I can continue to throw well.
So for me, what has happened is I certainly didn't want to change my form. What happened was I realized it changed. So you have to be self-aware. That's a really important part of all of this. You need to be self-aware how you're doing physically. You need to be realistic about how well you're doing or not doing. If you're improving or not improving, you've got to be honest with yourself. And what I noticed was that, so I'm a big fan, or I push that you need to use your body a lot in toss and fetch, especially your core, to take all of the problems as much as you can out of your arms, shoulders, your knees and things like that. And when I used to compete, after a day of several rounds of toss and fetch, my abs would start hurting, and the next day my whole midsection would be on fire. Just like pretty bad pain, but it's good pain. It's muscle pain. If you, one of the things that it's the only muscle groups in your body that you can work as much as you want is your abs, and that's just like a kind of a common sports knowledge kind of thing. I don't know if there is some crazy limit, but you could work them every day. You can do crunches every day or whatever works for you to work on your core, and you can do your abs as much as you want. And I would notice, man, they'd be hurting so much, and it was a good thing because I knew that I was using them a lot. Well, I stopped having that problem, and I didn't really think about it, but it was gradually changing, and I've been having some hip problems. There's plenty of other injuries, but specific to this is the hip problems. So I wasn't rotating as much, and by doing that, I started using more arm. So the last probably 2 years, I've been using a lot of arm with my toss and fetch throws, which I personally don't want to do.
So to clarify, though, the hip problem is not related to the things you're doing in disc. You think that it's separate, but that's why it's affecting you,
Yes,
right?
I think it's just age mostly, to be honest with you.
So it's not like you had a hip problems because of doing disc. It's
No.
The hip problems are coming from getting older.
Getting older, I think, is the main thing. I probably have some issue in there.
And that's affecting your throwing.
Right. And I played a lot of sports. I played hockey and basketball and baseball and football, and it goes on and on and on when I was younger. And I've had a lot of injuries. So I think just stuff like that's coming back on me. And so, but I realized, I was like, my arm keeps bothering me. And then I started thinking, well, this self-aware thing, what's going on, right? What's different? And I realized, well, my hips have been bothering me. And I started thinking, I don't do the kind of rotation that I like to do. So that is what I'm getting back to do, is try to get back to the form that I think I should have. And by doing that, I'm evaluating myself like I've done over the years, watching video of myself, training, specifically trying to isolate this rotation. Even though my throws in practice are looking kind of terrible right now, I know what the end game is going to be, and I just want to get to that.
I think that's really interesting because my experience is so different and my thought path is totally different. So I think the opposite of throwing. I think if the more body parts you have moving, the more potential there is for error. And maybe this comes from me not naturally being very accurate. I was very, very inaccurate. I could throw fairly far naturally. Like for somebody my size as a kid, a girl, smaller frame, I could throw pretty far for my body, but I was very, very inaccurate. So a lot of my practice, and when I say practice, I mostly mean toss and fetch here. I mean, freestyle, I think, is a different type of practice. I don't think freestyle hurts you.
It's a lot easier.
It doesn't hurt us in the same way that toss and fetch hurts us. That really is where all of my injuries come from, is pretty much all
or
toss
distance,
and fetch.
I'm sure, too.
Distance, yes. The combination of the both absolutely is cause for injury. And actually trying to be the highest level possible in both is how I got one of my worst injuries that really could be disc dog career ending, or at least competitive career ending. But anyway, so I kind of follow the less moving pieces, the more accurate I can be, the more I can just pinpoint and just use as little movement as possible to get exactly where I need to be. And the less things moving, the less that can go wrong. So I really focus on using a lot of arm and a lot of just upper body and a little bit of twist, and only use enough that you need to get to where you need. And for me, that's helped me zone in that accuracy and kind of make it so that I'm consistent and I can just hit the zone. And, like in Skyhounds, trying to stay in bounds on those out of bounds. I mean, that was really a lot of my thinking, is I need to be accurate, because it doesn't matter if I could throw it 40 yards or 45 yards. If it's the wrong direction, if it's out of bounds, it's not going to count for anything. So I better be able to throw it down the middle. And, during this time, I also have Torch, who it's not just throwing it out the middle. Don't throw it within 5 yards of the sidelines, because Torch will just jump out. He would jump huge. So my target had to be very, very centered, because he'll add an extra 5 to 10 yards potentially, depending on the throw. So I felt like I had to be extra accurate to make sure that we were staying within the Skyhounds toss and fetch, which is a lot of what I practice. I also practice the USDDN bonus strip. Just because I feel like it's very limiting and it's very, it's like maybe the hardest thing to practice to make sure you're very straight. So I like to practice under those constraints just so that everything else feels easier. Then I go out to a competition and I'm like, oh, this feels a lot easier when I've been practicing the really hard thing. So yeah, my injuries are mostly from overuse and probably because I do use less muscles, and those are all pinpointed. All of the very few things that I use, those are always at risk for more injury.
And I
because
do,
a lot of the loads on that.
I do. I guess my belief is to try to balance it out a little bit. And now that I'm getting older, especially,
Well, you're
I
thinking
really
more
know.
longevity, right?
Well, it was earlier on when I was your age, actually, is when I started having these thoughts. So maybe this is something that'll start creeping into your thoughts. I don't know.
Well, it has been.
Right. And so that's why this is such a great conversation.
Right.
Because I was at that age where you are and had injuries and things and have gone another 20 years. And so, I was there and now I'm here and I need to get back to where I was. And
no, I feel like I've got to get back to where I was before I was injured. But yes, your situation is different. So you're further along in the journey of injuries than I am.
And yeah, just old. it's getting tough, man. It's getting tough for me. I'll tell you what. But it's just something that you need to do what's right for you, and of course talk to a doctor and do all that kind of stuff that people say, because it's
physical therapy, all of that good stuff. Yeah, don't take our advice as far as that goes.
Right.
We're just sharing what we've been doing.
Exactly what we've done and what's happened to us.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I wanted to talk about, and I've already talked a little bit about it, was the compensation. No matter what, if you get some little injuries or whatever might be going on, you might need to compensate. You don't have a choice.
Or your body's going to do it without you having any, you don't have a choice. It's going to happen.
And you should do it on your terms. So, for example, when I tore my rotator cuff in my shoulder, and I didn't hurt it playing disc, but when I tore my rotator cuff, I threw left-handed for an entire year. And the problem was it led into, at the same time, I hurt my elbow, and that was most likely from weightlifting. I was lifting too many weights. And potentially from overthrowing, the overuse, too many throws. And again, I threw left-handed. So it was about 2 years I was either throwing part of it entirely left-handed or kind of switching back and forth. Like what I would do, for example, is I might go out and warm up left-handed. And what that would do is just let me get a feel for the field. So if it's uphill, downhill, the way the wind's going, things like that, get a feel for the disc. Because I learned to associate my right-handed throws with my left-handed throws in both freestyle and toss and fetch. But this is mostly for toss and fetch because, like we said, the freestyle throws don't
hurt.
They don't really hurt. Most of them don't.
Unless you're trying to do something crazy, that's a little different. Just the actual throwing piece when it's in it of itself. But I think part of that is because the freestyle throws, they don't have to be is perfectly accurate. You're not hitting the same zone every time, and you're also not throwing quite as far. Typically. Maybe one or two you might throw pretty far, but for the most part, you're not throwing as far. And when you do a freestyle throw, how many might you do? You might do 10 to 20 of each grip, and it's a little bit of each grip, and it's a lot of different movement, and it doesn't have to be quite so precise. Whereas toss and fetch, you have to be perfectly straight.
Yep. And
distance, you have to use so much of your body. Even if you're not perfectly straight, you're using so much that it could hurt. So you're kind of overexerting yourself more so in toss and fetch, and distance than you might be in freestyle. So that's I think when we talk about throwing here, we're really talking about toss and fetch. And in my world, you practice distance a little bit, but I think I've practiced distance a lot.
That's been a long time now, man. I used to do a lot of distance. Actually, before I competed, I just tried to throw it as far as I possibly could. So
sure,
and I did that,
but
for
not
a long
lately.
time.
In the last 10 years, you haven't really done like a lot of like major distance practice. I practiced distance in the last 5 years. Like in 2022, I was going after the quad series, the whole thing. It was kind of my mission that year to compete in distance with Sora because she's just so darn good at it. I was like, I gotta at least commit a year to doing distance with her. Of course, then I got injured right before the quad finals, and I was like, oh, dang it. But anyway, prior to that, I had had a long break of not doing distance for almost 10 years, not quite.
So that's an example of compensation in me is I threw left-handed, and it helped me to learn how throws work, because I'm not ambidextrous by any stretch of the imagination, but I played a lot of sports that required both: basketball, dribbling and shooting both hands, um, baseball, catching left-handed, throwing right-handed, batting. I bat left and right-handed, so there was a lot of crossovers I did have. But when I tried to throw a disc left-handed, it was just awful. And then I realized, well, I should probably be okay at that anyways. So I started throwing left-handed a lot, and that took all of the strain and everything off my right arm. And then I was just able to use my left arm, let it heal, and still be competitive. And that's one example. Another one is
I want to speak a little bit on the left-handed thing. I actually was recommended this by physical therapist and chiropractor to do, even though I didn't have something as major as the rotator cuff injury, but when I injured my right side, it was throw to the left side to balance it out, because a lot of times when we practice, it's like you don't want to spend the extra 20 minutes or whatever it is to do left-handed. And if you can, you should, because even if it's not for a purpose to throw left-handed, like you're not necessarily going to do that at a competition or throw, toss, and fetch left-handed or anything like that, it helps to balance the muscles. It would be kind of like if you just did a dumbbell curl with your right arm only, or maybe a better
everybody's seen those guys though that have a giant,
just the one side,
little skinny legs and big arms, like any of that kind of thing.
Like anything where you're just doing one side, it's just not balanced. I guess a better example would maybe be a fly, because it's more, it's a little bit more both-sided. A dumbbell curl is very one-sided, but it helps to balance the other side. And at least if the muscles are getting pulled on your right side, the left side, if you do throwing on with your left hand, then you're going to get some pull the other way. So you're not lopsided.
and the same thing happens in your brain. I actually read this in a book, as a table tennis book. So I played table tennis, and the author, Vladimir, can't remember his last name, I'm sorry, but he's one of the greatest table tennis players ever. He said you should practice roughly 20% with your offhand. And not because you're ever going to use it in a game, but because it activates the other side of your brain. And for me, maybe it was because of that or something else, but what I noticed is I started thinking about the throw more. Well, I'm really bad at this, so what do I have to do? And I thought of every little step. Whereas right-handed, when I started, I just picked it up and threw it, and it was pretty darn good. So that helped me really understand the throws and why things work. And then whenever I went back to my right-handed throws, so much better. I had so much more control, so much more understanding. When something went wrong, I knew it, because I would just feel it right away, because I'm so in tune with like how my hand's supposed to be, the angles and all that kind of stuff.
So that's a good point. Yeah. I think there's value. There's definitely value in throwing left hand. I mean, obviously in freestyle, it's gonna help the handler score, just as a direct result. But I think, more behind the scenes is, like you said, if you're throwing left-handed, you're gonna build your skills both sides, even if you don't necessarily use the left-handed throws.
So I was thinking we'd talk a little bit about like some of the other exercises and things that we do that really have almost nothing directly to do with disc.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
I mean, hiking.
Yeah, that's one we do together.
one of the best things, I think. It sort of combines aerobic
well, we also
and strength.
we don't just hike. We also, it's trail running. So there's some combo. I mean, it just kind of depends on the day. I mean, if somebody's really tired, then maybe we walk, or it depends on where we go to. If it's hot out or whatever, maybe we're doing more walking than running, but usually some type of running activity we try to include, even if it's like, okay, let's just do a few short stretches of running. Some days it's like, okay, let's try to, marathon through the whole thing. I can't do that. I start huffing and puffing, but we try to do as much as you can.
And the other thing, when you have a training partner, it is so great to push each other.
Yeah.
Because instead of just being like, I won't go today. Well, but my buddy wants to go.
Yeah, there's been a
Kind of
million
thing.
times that it's like, oh, I don't feel like
One
it.
of us, the other one doesn't want
And
to.
then the other one's like on my way, and you're like, oh crap, I can't stand him up. So I would highly recommend that if you're kind of looking to up your level as a player, to find another human partner to pair up with and train together. Hopefully they're local to you. But I actually think people could do this from a distance, even if you're just kind of encouraging each other, checking in. Hey, did you do your run today? Like an accountability partner. If it's somebody long distance.
I did 30 minutes today. Well, I got up to 45 minutes.
Yeah, you know? I don't know how many times there's been where you'll send me, like, there's been times where you'll send me a picture of, like, you're throwing, and you're like, dude, look, 10 in a row, right within, like,
they're all stacked
like,
right next to right there.
Within a yard of the cone or 2 yards of the cone. I'm like, oh, crap, he's practicing. I need to go out there and do this so that I can beat him. And, and it's very much like this back and forth. So even if your friend or your accountability partner isn't close, they don't live close to you, find one, even if they're across the country or across the world, and say, hey, what are you doing? And kind of share what you're doing with each other. Find somebody to strategize with, because it will really help kind of motivate you and take you to the next level. And hopefully your accountability partner has some good ideas on strategy and stuff you guys can work together on figuring out what that is. And I think we both can agree on this, is that's been a huge influence for each other.
Has it ever?
I don't know that either of us would have made it as far as we've made it without each other and kind of pushing each other. And then, there's definitely, I have the little sister syndrome of, oh, dude, my big brother just like nailed it. I'm not going to let him like just whip my ass like that. Like, I'm going to, I need to go show him who's, in the house right now.
And the exact same thing the other way, because I'm not going to let my little sister show me up. Come on. But if you want to have more fun with it, you could call it your accountability buddy. So if you want to have like
God,
you could do that. But there's also, just walking. I try to walk every morning with the dogs, at least just a little bit. I'll take 2 or 3 of the dogs, just go for a 30-minute walk or running. I used to do cycling, elliptical training, swimming. I've only been able to do that a couple times. My pool's a little bigger, so I might try it in the new pool.
You won't.
I want to. It just might not be big enough is the problem. Because believe me, if I had a pool that was big enough, I would just swim all the time. But we'll see. Weight training.
Yeah, so I'm not a cycler. I'm not a swimmer really either. So really my running, walking, hiking type thing, that's more my realm. I've done some weightlifting. I always struggle with this because, like I said, I'm naturally really weak. So my biggest problem has been I've attempted many gyms and private training programs or any other kind of programs. Every single one I've been injured. Every single one, because the trainers always push the same thing, harder, harder, harder. And so I've kind of given up on that. And I don't really like weightlifting. So it's difficult, and you don't really do weightlifting either, so you're not going to motivate me to go do it.
Well, there's reasons. I'll talk about that whenever you're
right. So I do kind of have this love-hate on and off relationship with lifting weights, because I know I need to do it. And it's probably even more so important for me as somebody who's smaller framed and naturally weak to be doing that. But unfortunately, I feel like I don't have good guidance in that area. And the guidance that I've had, which I've had many, many people try to, train with me and do that. And the problem is that it's always get bigger, go harder. And when I do that, I just get injured every time. And I can't do that. And to me, it's not worth risking my abilities to throw and play with my dogs to get swole. It's really not. I just don't care about the vanity piece of it enough. I just really would like to, prevent injuries and be able to play with my dogs forever. So I have an on and off relationship with it. I probably go lighter than I should, because I am fearful of injury. But also, I think I have reason to, because I've been injured so many times from it. And every time I start a program, it's like I always get injured. Even if in the beginning it seems all good, I always end up getting injured. So I do lift weights on and off. It seems to be like I go through these cycles of lift weights, get injured, take time off, all of that. So love-hate relationship with it.
I've been, I guess, since I was a kid. I've always been pretty much just lean. Uh, I was fairly strong. People probably laugh at that now because I look like a weakling whenever I try to walk or do anything now. But I was pretty strong for my size. I was never bulky. No matter what I did, no matter how much I trained, lifted weights, do anything, I never got any kind of bulk. I've always been reasonably strong. Whenever I've played sports, I always played against bigger players. Always. I'm an average height. I'm 5'9", and I have always played against bigger players when I played basketball.
Is that a lie? Because most guys lie. Like
No.
usually they're saying 6 feet. So
But-
you lying about 5'9"?
No, I thought
He's
you were.
not. He is actually 5'9".
Yes, I'm being realistic. There's people who have said, I think you're closer to 6 feet. I'm like, no, I know how tall I am. And I've always been pretty strong. I have been. I've always been able to carry my weight. I've always been able to work hard, like, just working around the house. I could shingle a roof. I could, carry bags of soil and rocks. And I mean, I could do that stuff. I do that stuff. You see me do a lot of that kind of stuff.
Yes, I've asked you to do a couple of those things, and you're like, fine. I'm like, please, your weak little sister needs help.
But I've never been able to lift weights to the point that it's made much of a difference for me. And when I have really put work into it, the one time I did, I hurt my elbow, and I'm still fighting.
See, that's how I feel. Like, as soon as I start making progress, it's like, if I start making progress, feeling better or whatever, starting to get done, boom, injury. It's like before I know it.
So for me, it would be, I'm thinking about getting into some of that stuff again, and it'd be more light type of weights and exercises. For example, some of the putting the bands in in a door or something like that, so you could do, like, I don't know how much you can see, but moving
those.
these kinds of things.
I think those are good, and to me, that's like it's like weights, but it's a little different because it's not like serious.
And when you start
weights.
with it's nice and easy because there's no tension. Whereas you pick up a weight, it's all there, right? So
Right.
It actually is.
You can
and
adjust
you
it
can
much
adjust.
easier. Yes.
You could just not go as far or whatever, or stand closer to the door. Me, I would just change my distance. The bands specifically, especially if you're a guy, I really recommend being careful with them, because multiple times I've had them break and come back and hit me. When you're going like this and your hand's right in this spot and the band comes flying back and whacks you right in the middle.
Yeah,
it's really
I
bad.
don't want. I just don't want it to hit me in the eye.
So
I
I
don't
think
care where. It
well,
hits
you
I don't
will-
want it
you-
to hit me in the eye.
You would as a guy. Like, you don't want it to hit down low. And it happened 2 times, and I'm like, I'm never doing bands again. But now I was thinking, well, I'm a
It
little
depends
older.
on the bands.
I should probably do a little lighter, like not as much tension. I was doing as much tension as I could, putting 3 or 4 bands in, making it tough. I'd probably just put one, make it fairly easy. And
I
at least
definitely
I'm-
do some bands as like physical therapy type
Yes,
things.
that's where I
so
learned it
it's
from.
not extreme.
That's where I learned it from.
Yeah.
And then, I was just doing little weights with my wrists, like stuff like this and like this for my elbow problem.
Describe that, because I think if somebody's listening
So
to a
dumbbell-
podcast, it might be only audio.
So I have my arm basically straight out and holding a dumbbell of whatever weight the physical
Yep.
therapist.
Palm down.
Palm
holding
down,
a
and
weight.
I would curl. It's like little wrist curls. Think of like wrist curls.
It is.
And then I did the other way, so palm up, which is much easier, by the way. And those help my forearm get really strong. And what that does is takes the load off of the elbow a little bit. So that was what I did there. A lot
Yeah.
of the other band things were for my shoulder.
Right.
The
Yeah.
band exercises.
The band exercises that I do are for my back, but I wanted to comment on kind of the forearm strength. I don't know that you use, maybe you have used one of these, but those gyro balls,
Oh, yes.
I've been a huge fan of those for forever, because naturally, when I say naturally weak, like I'm talking everything's naturally weak, especially my little baby hands. I have like child size hands. If you know me, like I've got little kid hands that have no strength or no power, and my forearms are super weak. My forearms are only good for playing rock band, like when I was a kid on the drums or whatever, like the video game, not actual instruments. But anyway, so that's the only thing my hands are good for is playing the like video games and stuff like that. So, but the gyro ball, that's very helpful for getting a lot of strength. So that helped me a lot as a weakling.
I worked with one of those also, and the issue I had was it bothered my elbow. I think
it's
because
never
there's
bothered mine.
Well, I have an elbow nerve impingement, so
I don't have a.
So
I have.
it's a
tennis
lot
elbow,
of
basically.
Yeah, so
Which
mine's
is a little different. Mine's tendonitis.
right. Mine's not tendons, muscles, or anything. It's the nerve.
Mm.
And so that had a lot of really short, kind of rapid movements, which is great for
Oh,
strength.
see, I use
But
it like I kind of twirl my whole wrist as
I was
I'm
trying to
doing
set the
it.
records. So one of the things I do have a pretty good
Like gyro
strength.
ball records?
Yes, there's ranking. So
Oh
did you
God,
have
I
an
didn't.
electronic one?
No.
Oh, okay. Mine was electronic, and it would actually connect and put the
Oh,
scores up. So
I didn't know there's scores. I had
yes,
no
I
idea
was in the
about this.
top 10%. That was pretty good.
I had no idea that even existed. I just twirled the thing in my wrist, both directions, both hands. And I'm like,
So
I got better at frisbee throwing. I
it was
didn't know there's
that was
rankings.
I did like it, but over time it started to make my elbow actually worse because I was getting better at it, and I was trying to do it more and more and more. And then when that happened, I just said, now I can't do that. There's always something that happens with any training I'm doing. It seems that, well, I can't do that anymore because
Like
now this is
overdo
hurting.
it.
Yeah, so you got to just be reasonable with
Well,
it.
maybe you could do it in moderation.
Well, that's the thing. So you
And
gotta
trying
try
to do
to
it
you
in
gotta
moderation.
you have to hold yourself back when you see progress. You got to say, well, just stop there. That's fine, and just don't do more.
Yeah.
Maybe
That's my problem is like I think I need to be really motivated to do it in the first place. And then if I'm not seeing progress, then I'm less motivated to do it. So I won't do it as much. But then if I am seeing progress, then I'm like, okay, let's go full in. And then I get injured.
Yep, same kind of thing.
So it's like, oh, if I'm like kind of casually doing it or not as intense, I'm not as motivated to do it. So it won't get done.
So the other thing that I have done a fair amount of, especially when I really work out a lot, if we do like long hikes or just anything like that, I do like to stretch, but I'm already pretty flexible. That's actually one of the reasons I get a lot of injuries is because I'm over flexible. But even because of that, I still like to do some. And I can get I can't do it anymore, but I could probably put my knuckles on the ground, instead of touching your toes. I could probably get my knuckles on the ground right now, but I don't think I can go to my palms of my hand. But as long as I can touch the ground, with my legs straight, I think, or my toes or something like that, I feel that I'm at least flexible enough overall.
That's nice.
As
I
an
can't
overall,
do that.
I'm not super flexible, but I'm definitely flexible.
I'm really not flexible. What's funny is my physical therapist said that's why I get injured is because I'm really not flexible.
Yeah, I've been in so many therapy sessions and they've never once said that to me.
Let's just say that I am so not flexible. It's actually embarrassing. I was the least flexible girl in like high school PE. I almost failed PE because I almost couldn't pass the flexibility test. Like that's how not flexible I am.
I was always good. I was jealous of the boys that could like put their hands on the ground. There was only one I can really remember. He would just go down and he was a good runner and everything. He would just put his hands on the ground. And I decided I wanted to be able to get to that. And I couldn't do it whenever I was in like, 5th, 6th, 7th grade. But I was able to do that when I was training for disc dogging. Like I was crazy training like 10 years ago. I was able to put my palms on the ground.
I've never been able to do that. Like maybe if I stood like that for 25 minutes, like I'd eventually stretch down there and the blood would all be going to my head and I'd like fall over and then my hands would hit the ground and then I'd keel over and die. But yeah, no. Like I could barely like sit on the ground with my legs out and touch my toes. Oh God, that's almost impossible. I think that may have been the one I almost failed PE on. It was really bad.
Yes, like, I remember they would judge you for that stuff. Is that really fair? I don't know. And for all those things, running the mile.
I couldn't do that either, dude. They wanted
vertical
me to
jump.
They wanted me to do that in 8 minutes. I was like, I'm lucky if I finish. Like cardiovascular, oh, I'm bad. Like I'm like a poorly bred dog.
Oh my gosh!
I'm like a backyard bred dog.
Okay, so what do you think my best event was? For all of the, you don't know all the tests that the guys had to do, but the things they would test you on, there was the different flexibility things.
God,
there was
I don't know what the tests are.
Well, we were talking about some of them.
I know, but I don't really remember them.
The running the mile. Well, my best thing was pull-ups. I was always the best.
And you know what was funny? I kind of thought in my mind pull-ups, but I'm like, did they do that? Like, yes. I didn't know if they did it. I think they didn't do it for the girls. I think
probably
they only
not,
did
because
it for
that
the boys.
would really be unfair.
Well, I mean, how many girls can even get one?
I was pretty good at push-ups too.
I don't even think I could get one.
But I don't think I was like the top kid. I was always like first or second with the pull-ups, and So I generally had good like upper body strength. That's how I always was. My lower body strength sucked always. So I wasn't good at running and things like that. I was good at sports, and I compensated because my arms, my hands were always good. That's why I can throw good. I mean, that's really the reason I'm good at this sport.
I just showed up with nothing, and I'm like, oh god, I got to figure out how to throw a frisbee for my amazing dog.
Well, speaking of which, so what do you for throwing practice? What do you?
What do I do?
You know, like you know.
You want me to lay it out? What I do throwing practice?
Some ideas, yeah.
Okay, so I kind of mentioned this earlier, but I throw the USCDN bonus trip. That is my throwing field, and I play my Kirby's game of toss and fetch is to implement the Skyhounds rules into the USCDN bonus trip. No need for the rest of the field because if you're outside of the bonus trip, that's a 0. Pretty much, if you're not in that 5-point little rectangle that is the USCDN bonus trip, if you're too short or like out to the side, it's nothing. It's 5 points or 0 points. That's Kirby's game of toss and fetch. And so I practice with that field, with that little box, multiple directions. And I try to go to different fields. I try to go to, different wind, situations. I try to go to fields that might not be perfectly flat, just a little slightly off. So I try to go to all different kinds of fields and different situations. And I try to hit that little box. And when I was younger and I didn't have all these injuries, I would throw, it depended on the time of year, but when I was in high season, I mean, it was, could have been 100 minimum to maybe 300 to 400 toss and fetch only throws in a session. And I do that maybe 3 to 5 times a week. And now it's less. It's maybe like I try to do 100 to 150 because it hurts. And right now I can barely get to that. I'm just trying to preserve my body and just make sure I don't shrivel up and not have any muscle left to use. So that's kind of the toss and fetch piece of my throwing practice. And then my freestyle practice, I have 2 methods of doing my freestyle practice. I'll do just the throws, and this sometimes I mix it up, but I'll typically do the throws of my routine. Like I'll have 5 to 10 discs in my hand and do each throw in my routine, 5 to 10 times, however many discs I'm holding. And I'll usually go through the whole routine and just the first throw, 1, 2, 3, 4, till I hit 10, and then to the next throw and to the next throw, and I keep going on. And I may do more if I feel like I wasn't happy with how the throws came out or they weren't very consistent. And then another way that I practice my freestyle throws, and this is more of a routine practice, I think, than it is the actual throws, but it's kind of doing the throws in real time. So I'll do the routine as if I were playing with the dog live. So I go from trick 1 to trick 2 to trick 3 to trick 4, and I go through the whole routine and I run through it like at the real time speed that I'd be doing it with the dog, so that it's kind of my real time practice.
Nice.
So those are kind of 2 different ways that I practice freestyle. Sometimes I do one, sometimes I do both. Just kind of depends on what's in store for the day.
So the way I do it is I take my bag out and I sit it right in the middle, whatever direction I'm going to throw.
Oh, I should mention I have cones too. That's a difference that you don't typically put out a bunch of cones.
Right. I typically don't do cones. You mark when you were talking about the Skyhounds with the USDDN type of field, you mark out the cones.
Yes.
Only for the 40 yards, because the other yardage doesn't matter.
No.
So at least the way
unless
we practice,
I'm specifically practicing
right,
the 10, but I usually don't practice the
right,
10.
The way that we typically practice is we're only shooting for the 40. So whatever you're shooting for, that's what you should mark off and really care about. So I take my bag out and sit it right wherever I'm going to throw from, and I'm going to throw and toss and fetch whatever direction, and I measure it out with almost always I use a rolling wheel with a measurement. And as I'm doing it, I'm also counting off my steps, because I'm always trying to keep myself calibrated. Because if I don't have my rolly thing, I know how far 40 yards is. So I could just walk it off if I don't have it. I do it every single time. 1, 2, 3, 4, I count. And I usually go to 44 steps is how many it would be for me. And because I don't want to be short, I add another step every time. And usually when I do
you go to 44.
I go to 45. because
45,
45
yes.
is usually right about at 40. But what if I'm walking a little shorter that day? I'd rather throw longer than shorter.
I go to like 42.
You do long steps. I do my normal
I
walk.
do long steps,
Right.
but I also have a much shorter stride.
Right. So you try to do whatever's consistent, learn what 40 yards is. And of course, even if I don't walk it off, I kind of know where it is. Come on.
I think also my strategy on the yardage, not that like 2 yards really matters that much, but like part of my strategy is that Torch would always jump into the next zone. So if I was 40 yards, he'd pop up and it would be 43 yards whether I liked it or not. And Sora a lot of times will turn. So her trailing paw isn't always her back foot. It's actually her front. So a lot of times she'll be turned. So it can be rare where she's actually dragging a back foot. And flare, I don't even think about that because I'm just praying that I just make a throw that she can catch. I don't care where it is. But anyway.
So whenever I get to 40 yards, I put the measurement wheel out there, and that's my other marker. So I don't put any cones out typically. I have, but I don't really do that now. This is what I've settled on. And my idea is I need to get right to my bag or my my wheel, and it's got to be just past it. And I don't care what's to the left or right because I'm only looking right where my bag is. And if I get more than a few feet off from it, I'm not happy with the throw. And that is my mentality. So I throw to more of a spot. You throw more to a zone.
Yes.
Is what we've determined.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting that we have differences in that. And so for me, I feel like the zone thing works very well for me because it's very all or nothing. And it's a very clear guideline of what is 0, what is 5, what is good, what is bad. So it's a very black and white line. There's no gray area like, that might have been in the zone. That might have been in, it might have been out. And it also is a little bit more of a positive reinforcement for me as somebody who's a perfectionist, which I know you're a perfectionist too. But for me, if I'm throwing at the bag and I don't hit the bag every time, it's going to feel like a failure to not hit the bag. So for me, if I'm within the zone, it's a positive. If it's outside the zone, it's a failure, right? But at least there's more area for positive in my perspective.
I don't have a lot of area for positive. It's just I gotta get it right there in that spot and not hit the bag.
So you're okay though with a lot of negative feedback from your practice.
Yeah, I'm always angry at myself every single practice session. I'm usually hating myself after every one of them. Not every one of them. There's every once when I send you the pictures, that's whenever I'm not angry at myself. Because they're just the discs. I got 20 discs just stacked up on top of each other right there, and I'm like, I did it.
Yeah.
So that's my toss and fetch, and I would do up to 500 throws. I do it every single day. I'd go out 7 days. I go out
500 throws in freestyle.
No,
how much total?
I didn't count them because I would be out there 4, 5, 6 hours. So I would go out there after work. Let's say if I got off at 4 o'clock or something like that, and it gets dark at 8:30. I'm out there waiting for the lights to come on, and they're on for about an hour. And then whenever I start getting scared because all the riffraff comes in and all of the kids that were playing, everyone's gone. Everyone's gone but me, and I'm looking around. I decide I better get the heck out of there. I would do that virtually every single day. And it was that's part of the reason why I probably got some injuries. It was too much. So now, I was doing 0 practicing for about a year. I didn't practice last year, like almost 0. But now I'm going twice a week, and I'm trying to do about 30 toss and fetch throws each session. So that's all I'm doing in toss and fetch. I haven't done freestyle throws since COVID, so it's been 5 years, no freestyle practice. And that's because of injuries and things like that. The reason for the no freestyle practice right now is because of my hips, and it's an awful lot of picking up discs. It's a lot more of picking up discs. And a lot of the throws that I do get some unusual, I like to throw under my legs down on, kind of down on the ground.
And then, like that with your head all sideways?
If I'm not going to practice it, if I'm not going to do the throws I'm really going to do, there's not much point in me practicing just something that's not going to be purposeful. I will say that I feel that my freestyle throws are really good, and I don't have to worry about it too much yet. I haven't felt I've dropped off some, but I don't feel like I've dropped off to the point where I have to really worry about it in terms of my competitiveness. Toss and fetch, yes. See, I could make a small error in freestyle throwing and be totally fine.
Right.
You won't even notice it. No one would even notice it.
Yeah, and a lot of times it's like, well, as long as the dog catches it,
they catch
it's
it, they
not
look
a real
good.
Big deal.
But in toss and fetch, if you're off by that much with what we're talking about, what we're
Yeah,
trying to
a couple feet
perfect,
off, you're screwed in
you're
toss and
done.
fetch.
You're
You're
done.
totally done.
So that's pretty much how my freestyle practice. I didn't mention that, how I would do it if I was doing 100%.
Yeah, how did you do it?
So
Like,
I did
how would you do
a
it?
lot of it. I mean, I did more of that than toss and fetch for sure. If I combined how many throws I did, I probably did some sessions with 700 throws. And that's like no joke total between toss
I think
and
I
fetch.
did that more towards the
freestyle.
beginning, and then I kind of got on a more maintenance with my freestyle throws, unless there was a new throw or something I was trying to improve the distance on.
I
or
would
something.
always come up with a new throw every single time I went out there, or 2 or 3, or something I want to make look different, or let's try it left-handed, that kind of thing. So I would go out and I would do a bunch of this, each throw, like kind of like you did. I would do them 5 in a box. I would do 5 that direction, whatever direction I'm facing, and then I would go 90 degrees to my right and do all of the throws again that way, and then turn 90 degrees, do it again, and 90 degrees, do it again. When I do that, I get every single wind condition. I wanted to be able to throw every single throw regardless of the wind. That used to be my mentality in freestyle. I did not care what direction the wind was. I did every single trick so the judges could see it perfect. That was my old mentality. To make it easier on myself, I've switched in the past 10 years to be facing the wind for most of my tricks. That's how I've done it. I mean, more or less. I trick people. You know, like if you just throw every single thing one direction, it doesn't quite look right. But I could sort of do that in some ways, or just throw 1 or 2 the other way.
The illusion,
It's sort of like an illusion. I'm pretty good at that in my freestyle, like kind of throwing out some of my little tricks there, and yet I had discs going all over the place. Maybe only a couple longer ones, and then what I'd do is I'd run down to that end of the field and then work my way back, and it kind of I cover the field with my throws.
Yeah, I think for me, I've always kind of determined which way the throws fly best, like which wind direction. And then I set up I practice the throws usually in 1 to 2 directions that they could potentially be. And it's usually, you know, like let's say a throw goes downwind really well, or like it's something I would consider like a downwind strong throw, flies best downwind. So I might like veer a little bit. So it's slightly crosswind, but mostly downwind. So I might veer a little bit, but I'm not going to about face and go into headwind. So I'll kind of pick the throws that fly best in a certain direction, throw those throws in their direction, and then within my routine building, I will make sure that I am facing oriented the correct direction for that throw. So when I do my freestyle routine, the very first sequence starts in the direction that I should be for that throw, and the rest of the routine should follow. And everything's choreographed so that all throws within my routine will go in their strong direction. So I don't really throw in the bad direction, or I call it like incorrect direction for the throw. So I routine build around the throwing skill, basically. And instead of using the throwing skill to fight the wind,
right,
I use the routine building to fight the wind instead of the throwing.
So I do believe that there's 2 different ways of throwing. Even in toss and fetch, it's either work with the wind or fight the wind. And I don't really know that one is so much better than the other, because I think
it depends.
I don't know if I'm a full believer of it, but I fight the wind. And it sounds worse than it actually is. What it means is that I don't care what the wind's doing, I'm doing my throw.
Yep.
That's how I look at it. Whereas a lot of people, let's say they have let's say you have a left to a left to right wind, I will try to throw straight down the middle and not let my disc curve. A lot of people will throw the disc out to the left and let the wind kind of carry it back in.
I don't like to trust the wind with anything.
I don't trust it for anything. I always basically fight the wind. And it's just, I don't tell people to do it one way or the other. I've seen a lot of people.
There's multiple ways for it to work, right?
There's
just depending on the day. I mean, if the strategy happened to work in that moment, it's great that it worked. I mean, it's just trying to, I think a lot of my strategy is trying to figure out what works most of the time for most dogs, like longevity wise, more than anything.
And I remember one time I had another competitor, pretty famous guy. We were in warm-ups and I was getting a little bit frustrated, and I actually been playing longer than him. Not that this would matter. I don't care if someone tries to give me advice, but he wants to come over and give me advice. And I'm just verbally during warm up, just complaining that my throws aren't going where I want them to and things like that. Just little remarks, And he
Just
said,
being a brat.
yeah, he said, hey, it was a right to left wind. And that's like my Achilles heel. Like if you want to set me up for something to screw me up, make me throw with the wind going to my right, or
You mean going to the left?
to the left
From the right.
From the right to the left. Even though I still could I go out there and do that and you wouldn't even know I was having problems, but in my mind I'm struggling the whole time. And he said, I'll just throw it out to the right. And I said, I understand what that does. I'm not interested in doing that. That's not how I throw. Just go ahead and do one. You'll see what it does. And I said, no, I'm not doing that. At World Finals too, you're going to try to get me to change what I'm doing. And
Not
so,
World Finals,
and I said, no, I don't throw with the wind. I fight the wind. And I told him that. And he didn't understand that because I think in his mind, there's only one way you could do it. And when he threw, he went way out to the right, and and the discs were floating down to look pretty. And I don't do that. I make my throw work how I want it to look. And
yes, I definitely fight the wind. I don't trust the wind with anything. The wind gods don't like me.
And if I can't,
I don't like them either.
if I can't win doing that, then I don't win. That's just how I do it.
Yeah, I mean, there's not one strategy that wins every time because there can't be. It's just not.
Right.
That's not possible. I think there's strategies that help you win most of the time or have a more successful day than you could have, or tend to be more consistent. But there's never 100% tried and true thing that will just never fail. I mean, I think.
And this loops around a little bit with why I did my freestyle the way I did, where I would throw basically every possible wind direction. So I get headwind, tailwind, both kinds of crosswind. Sometimes it would be a combination. I would just intentionally be like, I just pick a direction and start throwing. And whatever direction that is, it's fine. And then I just go 90 degrees off of that. So I get all the different directions. And by doing that, I feel like I can fight the wind. So if I get in a situation, wind changes, anything happens, I didn't want to throw it into a headwind, but it's happening.
Oh, okay.
I can adjust and I feel confident with it. I don't need to worry.
So you'll adjust your throw,
yes.
Whereas I think I'll readjust my positioning. I will do a setup move. Yep. I'll have the dog spin or go through my legs, and it may end up being a repeated something, but I try to make it look like it's in flow and it was planned, and that oh yeah, they were supposed to go through my legs to reset the direction.
Absolutely.
That's kind of, I try to pretend like it was intended. But it wasn't, and I just used some of those things to try to reset.
And that's a great way to do it too. It's valid.
I think they're both viable strategies, and depending on what you want to do, or depending on how much you want to practice. I don't really want to throw my discs into a wind direction that I think is difficult. It's just hard for me, physically and mentally. So I'm like, no, I'll just adjust my routine or adjust my positioning to make sure I'm setting up the throw right. So, yeah, I think both are totally valid.
Mm-hmm.
They're totally valid ways to do it. It's just different, but it kind of shows that it's not just one strategy that can do well, right?
Right.
I think also part of it is how good are you at that strategy, right?
Yes.
I feel like if I'm gonna switch directions on a freestyle throw, I feel like I'm pretty seamless on getting the dog to do a setup move, and it kind of like people not noticing it. It's not super blatantly obvious.
Right.
Whereas I think when you do your throws, and if it's in the wrong direction, nobody will notice because the throw comes out nicely, right? I think it's as long as you're good at the strategy that you choose to do, and it can be successful.
And my mind's always running a million miles per second because I'm thinking, oh, this is going downwind right now. Normally I do this into a headwind. I'm going downwind. It's going to go faster. It's going to go lower. I'm still going to try to adjust as best as I can, but I know it's going to go faster and lower. So as soon as that happens, a lot of times if I go that direction, for example, like let's say it's an air bounce, I always like to go straight into a headwind. If I do my air bounce downwind, it'll look great. It's going to go twice as far. And I actually have to throw it harder. It's air bounce is kind of an odd one, but it's a fun example because it's so extreme. And as soon as I do that, I know I got to start moving more towards my dog because they're going to be way further away from me and I'm going to have to adjust. So I'm already thinking, okay, as soon as I do this air bounce, I got to get moving. Whereas normally I can do my air bounce and I don't need to freak out and go sprinting after my dog because they're going to be closer.
Right. Well, I think it's funny that you said like, oh, your mind's running a mile a minute. And I think for me, I'm like airheaded out there. Like I don't want to be thinking
I'm thinking
about that stuff. I don't want to think about any of the details. The only thing I want to focus on is just connecting with my dog. Not saying that you're not connecting with your dog, but I just want to eyes, on the dog, make sure we're really connecting and make sure I'm timing the throws right more than anything. Like I want to time the throws right, not necessarily be focusing on the quality of the throw. Does that make sense?
Yes, and
so it's kind of a different strategy.
I
right?
am thinking at that moment that I do my throw, I don't care about anything else in the world. Every single throw, and well, both in toss and fetch and freestyle, but freestyle's tougher because there's so many and they can be quick. Every one of them, I try to like think that this is the most important throw of my life, and then the next throw, most important throw of my life.
Well, I kind of have that too, but
most important throw of my life. Every single
in a different way,
individual throw. And so I just try to put everything into it, at least when I'm at the
world
finals.
Think that way too. I think what I'm saying is that I'm not thinking about the throw or like the angle of my hand, or I'm going to slightly put more hyzer on it because we're going this direction. I'm not thinking about that specifically. Not that I'm not thinking while I'm out there or thinking about throwing, but I'm not thinking about the throw specifics, if that makes sense.
Yes, I'm all the way down to the detail, how I'm going to hold it, because I will change my grip if I'm going headwind or tailwind with certain throws, or like a lot of that, because if I have to put more hyzer on it, I might have to physically grip it differently. It's just all of the throws, I can do something totally different in with all the scenarios. The only thing that doesn't bother me too much is if it's crosswind. I welcome any kind of crosswind, and when I'm doing a freestyle throw, it's like kind of easy for me. I never have an issue with it.
Depends on the direction for me. One direction of crosswind could be a nightmare for me, while the other direction of crosswind could be great.
I guess
depending on the throw.
I guess for crosswind, because I'm thinking of every detail, I don't need to worry about the nose angle really. The only thing I think of is hyzer. Whereas if I'm going headwind, tailwind, it's hyzer and the nose angle.
See, I'm not thinking about a lot of that stuff because I've thought about it in the routine building, and if I'm going in the correct direction, I can just throw it how I've practiced throwing it, and then I won't be considering that at all. So just two different ways of doing it, which is really, really interesting, which I think, one more piece that we can talk about as far as maybe a little bit of our differences too is maybe some of the mental aspects of it. I mean, just one example I can think of right off the bat is I like to do throwing practice with music. I like to drown the world out. I like to go into my own little world, pretend like nobody's there. And you don't practice with music as somebody who loves music, but
for you, that's both practicing away from the competition and at the competition.
Yes. Oh yeah, I like to put the earbuds in. I want people to see them in and like ignore me because they know that earbuds are in, or like
so that puts you into your own zone and lets you focus.
Yeah, I'm so much better. I know we're both introverted, but I'm introverted in a way that I prepare routines better by myself. I'm more creative by myself. I'm just better alone, and I don't want a lot of extra noise coming in to my ears, I don't want to be overstimulated. I don't want to talk about, how cool that new leash you got is. Like if I'm at a world finals, right? Like I don't really want any other noise. I want just like blank space and just think of this. And like when I find like when I'm creating routines or coming up with sequences and stuff like that, it's harder for me to do creative things like that when I'm within a group or I'm around other people. I'm very much like I want to, crawl into my little cave and, be like just a nerd, yeah, my precious, and then come up with my little my precious routine, and I do it by myself, and that whole thing, which is so funny because one of these days we'll talk about pairs and how I end up coming up with some cool stuff in pairs, even though that's a collaborative thing, but that's a whole different topic. But anyway, so maybe you could talk about your side of things, why you don't do that.
I think of all of the training that we do, this is the one thing that's just completely different. for us, between us. Most of what we do, whether it be with the dog, how we throw, and all just different things. I
Practical
mean,
skills, I think we're the same
we do almost
on
everything
that.
the same.
Yeah.
Our techniques and our
We do a lot of the
methodology,
same cross training
our
physically.
beliefs, we do a lot of it together because it's common. That's how we started doing all these things together. So
that's why we hung out to begin with, was like, okay, let's practice.
Yeah, this part is completely different. When I go out, no music, no earbuds. I want every single distraction that there is.
You're like a dog. It's like a dog training him for distraction training, and I want to be in my bubble.
And I want all of those things. I want the kid that yells or throws something onto the field while I'm practicing, and I want the dogs barking, or if I'm at a competition, or music going on the the on the speakers. Not my music, but just out in the field. A lot of times when you're practicing, the music's going and random things, or they're saying things on the microphone, and competitors bumping into me, and getting hit with discs. I want all of that to happen, because when I go out there and play with my dog, I'm not going to be so lucky that I don't hear something off on the side of the field, or something distract me, or get me off of my game. I'm used to it, man. Anything happens, any noises, a tree falls over, whatever, I can keep going, because it doesn't. I'm already trained for it. Basically, I understand yours because you're getting into the zone. Basically, that's the best way to describe it. I don't get into the zone by doing that. I don't get that from it. I get into the zone when I walk onto the field and I have to compete. But whenever I'm practicing, I want everything, because I'm not going to have that luxury when I am competing. To have the earbuds and that stuff. I want it to be the same or even worse. Hearing all the things, whatever it might be.
I think that's so interesting.
Thunder, if it's raining, hear the rain coming down, someone yelling for me off the side of the field. All those things can happen when you're out there competing. So I want it to be the same.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. It seems like you prepare more for the worst, and I try to fit to what the perfect environment would be. And then when I go to the competition, I try to make choices to create the best environment for me to do what I do, and where I think you kind of prepare for doomsday.
Yeah, I would say that's pretty accurate.
You're the doomsday preparer. And so it's totally different ways of doing it. And kind of when we spell it out, I think your method probably sounds a little more logical. I think for me, I've just it's not something I just really thought about. It's sort of something I've fallen into, and I'm like, oh, this has worked, so I'm just gonna keep doing that. Like, don't fix what isn't broken. So yeah, I think it's interesting. It's a little different.
And I guess maybe partially with some of the other sports I've played, I mean, you're not going to show up and have earbuds in when your coach is there trying to tell you something.
Yeah,
they're going to hit you in the head. You're getting benched.
I only did a few team sports. I didn't really like them. It's just part of how I got into the dog thing. I'm not really a big team sports player. Not that I'm not a team player. I'm supportive of others, but I just don't. I don't know. It just never really did anything for me. I never really liked soccer. I liked hockey, but I think it's because I liked watching hockey more than actually playing it.
It's like artistic kind of sport. Yeah, that's why I like it so much.
I like watching it. So
that's my favorite sport, by the way. Hockey's my number one, outside of disc dogging.
But outside of that, I didn't really do much sports. I mean, other than I was a little kid and did dance, ballet, those types of sports, but not team sports. So I never really got into that. So I could see what you're saying, where for me, it wasn't, I never really got into anything where I had a coach in my ear. Where if you're doing a team sport, you have to be listening to the coach. You have to be communicating with the other players. For me, all of my hobbies, I mean, it wasn't sports. It was art. It was all kind of stuff that you do individually. So maybe that's also part of my influence, is kind of more of an artistic background, and writing. I was more of the art writer type, not really into sports. So to get into those kinds of things, it's listening to music, it's being in your bubble, those sort of things. So I don't know if maybe that somehow relates to how I become.
There's a lot of there could be hecklers and things like that in other sports. The other team guys on the
yeah, see, I try not to get involved. And I try not to make any remarks. I don't tell you how I'm going to do. I don't tell you how I'm going to beat you. If anything, I just look at it I have a very pessimistic view of how I'm going to do out there, which is not a way of bringing me down or making me disappointed. I'm trying to be realistic and make sure that I'm not nothing worse than overshooting and underperforming. That is the worst thing ever to me. Like that would just kill me. I'd rather shoot like and not think I'm going to get anything and then get something.
So,
you know what I mean?
something, this has nothing to do with our subject, really. We're getting off a little bit, but it is kind of
Well,
fun.
it's a little bit about mental. So,
well, it is. That's true. One thing that neither one of us do or have anything to do with is trash talking. Not saying I've never said anything.
You said more than I have, but yes, no, not much.
I generally, it's very rare for me to initiate something. If someone tries to trash talk me, which has happened a few times, I usually come back pretty nasty with it. Not like you're offending me, but if you think you're cool and you said something, I'm going to try to say something to just put you into the ground. That you're going to be like, oh, why did I say something? Because I'm not out here to talk about that. It's a little different. I wouldn't even call it trash talking. It's more like just being silly at some of our competitions.
Oh, yeah. No. It's all in good fun. It's not nasty. It's not nasty. But it's just like silly. Like, and we've done it back and forth a little bit,
but
too.
If somebody,
not in a nasty way.
Somebody trash talks me, I'll just be honest with you. I don't like it. I don't want to hear it. But I'm going to come back, and I'm going to come back hard. And well, maybe that's why no one does it anymore.
I smile and walk away. I will tell a little story about this last finals that I did, and I won't name the person, but the person was trying to trash talk me about toss and fetch, and it was very, very windy. And I ignored this person that was trying to trash talk me about toss and fetch because I just wanted nothing to do with it. I was going to be one of the last people to go. I did have a conflict with Flair's freestyle and Sora's toss and fetch, so they put me at the end of Sora's toss and fetch, or at the end of the toss and fetch list with Sora, and because the main field took precedence, so I was going to do Flair's freestyle first and then Sora's toss and fetch. But I think we were kind of near the end of the list anyway. Or at least like, I don't know, 2/3, 3/4 down. So it wasn't really going to make that much of a difference. But anyway, so somebody was kind of trying to trash talk and somebody that had already done their round and trying to trash talk me about what was I going to do in my round. And I kind of just blew him off completely and ignored him. And, I played with Flair and did her freestyle, and I just kind of was in my bubble, did the ignore thing, kind of did what I needed to do for myself, which was to just be in my bubble, ignore all that, and Sora nailed the toss and fetch. She had the highest toss and fetch of the day for the open division. I don't know about the toss and fetch. I don't think she was the highest, but for the open division toss and fetch, she was the highest. So that strategy worked for me when I can do it. I think when I engage back in that kind of thing, it I don't know, it sort of distracts me from my
I could totally get that.
From my goal, so I try not to engage with it. Now, of course, we have our moments of just playing around, or if it's something that doesn't matter so much, like we're trying to get a toss and fetch qualifying spot, we're trash talk, or we're both getting a qualifying spot, but it's like for third or something, we're gonna just be silly. That's a different thing.
And with your friend, a close friend, we could joke around a little bit.
Yeah, I think this person's a friend. I would consider the person a friend, but I think also world finals is a little different than maybe like a qualifier, or like if we're gonna trash talk it like Distogathon time trial or something like that, that might be a little different than like the AWI world finals or something like that. Or if we're at a local competition and it's we're like in a tiebreaker, just something silly. I think there's just different situations
I think that
for it, and I'll engage if it's there's smaller stakes, just because it's fun. I don't
bring
dislike
somebody else down. Don't try to get into somebody else's head.
I don't know that there was any malintent by this person at all. Just wanted to say that, just to clarify. I don't know that there was any malintent. But for me, I can't engage in that. So if people want to come at me with that, that's fine. Depending on the situation, and if it's like a finals event, I'm probably not going to engage in it. I'm going to go into my little bubble and just ignore, because I can't be distracted. I have to have my one-track mind on the proper track.
Yeah, I usually can't ignore if I hear someone say something kind of under their breath towards me or to somebody else. I just don't like it.
No, I know you can't do. You're like, oh no, I'm not going to let him
No,
do it.
and I say things to people if I, you know, it doesn't happen that often. I was booed once, not me, when Muse missed a disc once,
Yeah,
or cheered when Muse missed a disc because they
I
knew that
think
they
they
were
also
going.
booed when she caught as well.
It's just
It was weird,
really, this person doesn't even know me.
right?
They know who I am, but
Right.
I didn't
I
know
think
them.
that was a different situation because there was kind of malintent behind it.
There
It wasn't
was.
a fun like trash talking, or even if there's like just a little bit of playful banter, maybe they are kind of trying to get in your head, but they're also like there's multiple intents, like they're trying to be chummy, they're trying to be silly with you.
But that was during my
But
round
that was a
two.
different thing. That was also a totally different thing. That was
Yeah, that's
malintent, which I think was a whole different
yes.
situation. Yeah, I think
That one I lost my
well,
top.
that's a different that's a
But
different
but
situation.
so our last thing we're going to talk about is visualization.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Visualizing, which is pretty. It's not a long conversation. It's pretty simple. I like to also shadow boxing. If you into boxing or anything like that, that's what they call it. But it's just basically going through your mind, visualizing what you're going to be doing. It could be running through your routine. I used to do that a lot. Now I hardly ever think about my routine because I don't know what it is, but after doing it so long, I could just go out and do my routine, even if I've just made changes. I don't know. It just becomes part of me, and I can just do it. But I visualize my form a lot. Like when I'm laying there trying to go to sleep, I'm looking at my arm, and in my mind, I'm thinking of my arm motion, and I'm thinking if the wind is this way or that way, and I visualize all those kinds of things, and I'll also video myself and then watch
Mm.
how my things look, and if maybe detect what's going wrong. I consider that sort of part of visualizing.
Mm. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I kind of do the same thing. I visualize, my arm movement. A lot of times I will kind of just practice and feel it, like not um, necessarily just going out and throwing, but just kind of when I'm alone and just kind of thinking that motion with my arm.
Oh, you know what I want to say? When I really do that a lot is right before my round.
Mm.
So when I'm going out and I'm thinking maybe the wind changed or didn't change, whatever, I'm thinking, okay, this is how I have to throw it. And I look at the disc, I look at my arm, and I think, this is when I release, it better look like that. And if it does, it's going to be good.
Mm. Yeah, I think about that too, but I think kind of like our differences in the freestyle throwing. I try to throw the same throw in toss and fetch and get it to work in all situations. I think you adjust your throw a lot more, and I
Yes.
don't do that because I'm afraid the more things moving, the more things changing, the more that can go wrong. So I tend to try to throw the exact same thing and then change my environment, like by throwing from which side I think would be better. I change the environment by maybe
Type of
moving
disc?
myself. It
A
could
little
be
bit.
type
You
of
do
disc. It
that.
depends on the dog.
Not often. Right.
That
Sure.
depends on the dog. Maybe moving myself on the line so it's a little bit more crosswind direction. Maybe adjusting my timing a little bit. So I kind of change the environment a little bit more than I change my actual throw.
Well, I have a recommendation.
What?
I think what you need to do is start doing more toss and fetch left-handed out there, just to make sure you do a great adjustment for me. And I think you should be doing that
No,
very
no,
often.
no, no,
That
no,
will help everyone.
no. I think maybe with Flair and toss and fetch because we'll get the same score.
Oh my god!
But I don't think I can do that with Sora. Sorry. Yeah, I think for me, I actually probably visualize freestyle more in toss and fetch. So I don't do a lot of visualizing in toss and fetch outside of when I do the throwing practice. I'm usually visualizing the dog within my toss and fetch throwing practice. And then a lot of times my visualization outside of when I'm doing physical throwing practice is for freestyle, and I'm kind of visualizing different sequences and ideas and going through the routine in my head just so that it, comes to me so easy. I'm not having to remember what my routine is. It should just, come out like the alphabet for me.
I visualize with the toss and fetch thing, something that you mentioned a little bit is I will visualize my dog as I'm sending them around or however I'm sending them. And especially when I think of different wind conditions, if there's heavy tailwind or heavy headwind and I'm throwing in that direction, I'll visualize where my dog needs to
Yeah.
be
Oh, I do this exact
for
same
when
thing.
I
Yes.
throw, and then I visualize how that disc should look
Yeah.
going down the field, and as they're chasing it, and if I do everything right, how it should happen. And so that's,
Yeah.
can't teach this stuff to people though. You just got to do it on your own. You know,
Well,
it's like,
you could tell them
yeah,
to do it. I mean,
but
you don't know what you don't know, right? I mean,
visualizing is
what was really funny
tough.
is I remember watching like a, it was like a mental video for athletes, psychology tips for athletes, and they were talking about visualizing, and I didn't really have any understanding of what like psychologists teach athletes to do. This is one of the very early on videos, and they said, oh yeah, visualize your performance. It was so funny because at the time I was like, oh, I've been doing this for years. Nobody's ever told me. It just kind of happened naturally in my head.
Me too. I did it since I was a little kid, especially like basketball. Just thinking of how my hand was on the ball and how the rotation, and watching the ball fly through the air. Hockey, watching the shots. Table tennis was just brutal for me because it's such a technique based game, and the spin of the ball and things like that. You have to watch the ball from their paddle hitting their side of the table. On a serve on their side of the table, your side of the table. You have to watch all the way until it contacts your racket. So you're used to visualizing anyways, and it's actually kind of, if you really get into the sport mentally, it's rough because it's all you can think about is these simple motions and watching the ball spin, and then you're thinking about it. And I do the same sort of thing in the disc dogging. I'd say I've visualized it more than any of the other sports, all of them combined, probably.
Well, it's more important.
It's kind of more important.
It's kind of more your thing. But yeah, I think that was I think there's a lot more that we have. I think we could talk about
forever and ever.
Forever and ever. I think maybe we will do another episode with even more on mental game and things that we do.
How to win.
There's a lot of
thinking about it.
But it
what
doesn't even start with
do I
that,
get in?
right? So, but well, I guess winning could be different, right? But that is an example. But I think what's often overlooked is the progress to it, because you don't go from 0 to winning. You go from top 10 consistently to winning, and it's not even so much top 10. It's
making the cut.
It's can I get 3 catches in the highest scoring zone in toss and pitch? Can I get 4 catches?
Or can I just get to 40 yards? Period.
Yeah, it depends on where you're starting from, and then the kind of next level achievable goal. Eventually, it can turn into winning, but again, I think that's even a whole other podcast topic too. Is what is winning? Because winning is always comparative to another player. So,
or it could be in your own mind, because for me, a lot of times as a win early on, a simple goal that I had was the whole season, I'm going to try to never throw a disc short of 40 yards in toss and fetch, except unless I intentionally did for some reason.
Right.
But no 38-yarders. And I was close. I think one year I had like 2 or 3 the entire season. But that's like a win for me would be if I was, try to get to that point.
Yep. Yeah, for me it was like, okay, let's hit 27.5 with Sora.
And these
don't throw any out of
bounds. I had one year where I was like, no out of bounds, and I did it. I could actually honestly say I did not throw a single Skyhounds throw out of bounds the entire year. But that's all mental game. That's all wins, and things like that. Wins and losses, whether it's competitively
once you figure
or with
out
yourself.
Your strategy, then it's if you have a viable strategy that you're good at, then you have to have the mental game to actually follow through with the strategy and not choke Dave. But I think that's all good conversation for another episode.
Yeah, and in the comments, maybe if what I would like to hear, maybe any bad kind of experiences with someone heckling or saying something or just being, not very sportsmanlike, because that shouldn't belong in the sport.
I'll go opposite, more positive.
Yeah,
maybe what mental tactics do you use that benefit you, that help you? I mean, do you listen to music when you practice? Do you use cones in a zone, or do you go to a bag? What do you what's your practice style? What do you do that helps you succeed? What do you think is your greatest tip to succeed physically and mentally out there? So
absolutely.
Thanks again for watching, and hope you enjoyed this episode all about the human side of the disc dog handler.
Thanks a lot.